When it comes to packaging and pricing, there are three main decisions. What is the offer for our defined who, which is our customer segment? That becomes your packages or your tiers. Your pricing metric is the basis on which you will charge. Is it a per user, per gigabyte, per credit, per token? What is the basis? And then price point is that for that chosen tier or package, and on that pricing metric, what will be the price point? So these are the three decisions that we have to figure out how to make for our upcoming AI products. Now let's start with packaging. Some of this is 101 about packaging, which doesn't really change. If you're trying to come up with a new product, and let's say you want to reach a broad market, right? Then you are something like Netflix. Netflix has one or two tiers at most, right? They are trying to reach the whole world, and across countries they don't have a lot of tiers or a lot of packages. It's pretty much clearly laid out. There's the $12 plan or $13 plan or what have you. On the other hand, there are companies like my former employer Medallia, which sell to large financial services, insurance companies for multi-million dollar deals, and they may sell to retailers for 10 to 20K deals as well. For the larger deals, they often have to package their product in a more of an a la carte basis. They will talk to a financial service company, get an understanding of everything that is required, and then they will line item by line item custom scope these deals. And I remember a time when all of this used to happen when I was working there. Why do they have to do something that is more bespoke? Because the willingness to pay of a financial services company is very variable. It could be 2 million or 3 million, and the vendor is trying to maximize the return. They're trying to maximize how they monetize. So it does not help them to say, yes, this thing is 500K, and the company that was potentially willing to pay 5 million and the company that's potentially willing to pay 1 million end up paying 500K. They have to have more bespoke sizing for these enterprise customers. Hence, based on the nature of your market, you have this spectrum, and you can choose the type of packaging depending on the nature of the market. So that is packaging 101. But many times, and maybe on this call there are people joining who are wanting to understand, hey, I'm not creating a new product. We already have packages. I'm just creating a new feature and I want to add it to my lineup. What do I do? And this is a traditional question that most product managers ask. Hey, what do I do with this new feature? Should I just include it in all of the tiers? Should I charge more for it? And I will offer you the simple 2x2 rubric. If your new product has a high willingness to pay and a lot of people are going to want to pay it, then it makes sense that you incorporate some amount of that in all of the packages and maybe a more sophisticated version in the most premium package. That way, everybody can use it to a certain extent and you can monetize it as well, but you have the largest room for maneuver in that point. Everybody wants it, everybody has a high willingness to pay proportional to their tier. So you could even charge for it in all of your tiers if you wanted to and include it in all of your tiers. It's really up to you. But if the willingness to pay was lower and the popularity was high, that is something that would be more of a pull even feature. That is more of a feature where everybody's going to appreciate it, but it may help your win rate. It may not help you monetize much more. So you may just flat out add it and incorporate in all packages without necessarily charging extra for it. Not others are not interested, so it could be something like an advanced enterprise level feature related to security that other customers, your smaller customers, may not have a use for. Then you may want to use it, add it as an add-on with a specific price point, because you're trying to monetize that higher willingness to pay, but you also know that fewer customers are interested. So this is just a basic rubric that you can think about when you're coming up with this new product, as to how you will package it. And I'll give you a few examples. This example is from Zendesk, and they have added a few AI powered things. They have added AI powered bots, and that is going to be a mainstay of their product. So they have included it as part of all of their packages, and you will see that they're monetizing them as well. So they have certain, like I will show you in the pricing metrics section, that they have certain amount of inherent bundled usage, and if you use more than that, it will cost you more. But they have included some amount in all of the tiers. That is a highly popular feature. But there is a somewhat more popular feature for enterprises, that is something that they call advanced AI. That they are having a fixed rate on a per agent basis. This is almost 40% of their base tier value. And this advanced AI does other things that maybe all of their customer base will not need. So this is how they have launched these two features. One is included and one is additional add-on. Now, Sentinel One is a company where they said, okay, we are going to have our AI security assistant and our agentic SOC analyst. The AI security assistant is included in some tiers, and the agentic AI analyst will be an add-on, because potentially they think that will be monetized more. That has a potential of being monetized more, and they're still offering that in the premium product. But the AI security assistant is more available in some of the advanced tiers and is not really in the entry level tiers. So that is another way to look at how to package. PagerDuty's example is that they have added this AI Ops as a separate add-on altogether, which is fairly expensive. They probably think that a subsegment of their market wants it, but when they want it, they have a very high willingness to pay for it. And hence that would make sense that this is how they will do it. So there are a lot of, we are not in these companies. We don't know exactly what they're doing. We are making conjectures around why they may be doing certain things, but we have to understand that the nature of your market, the nature of your customers will dictate how you package. And there are a lot of different options to package, right? So you don't have to feel, oh, I just definitely need to include it. I think more a rational conversation needs to happen within the company as to what we are trying to do with the new feature, what is our monetization goal behind it, and what is our customer preference and customer feedback. Okay, so that is the packaging. That's the first step. Okay, yeah, there was one other slide that I had here. So this is Zoho CRM AI example, that they start to add their AI in the enterprise plan, and then they add a little bit more premium features in the ultimate plan as well. All right. So moving to the next step, which is the pricing metric selection. So you have a lot of different options, and you have to choose the basis by which you're going to charge. The basis of charging lies on a spectrum. Either you have on the very left hand side of this chart a more fixed and predictable pricing metric, on the very right hand side a more variable metric. A fixed metric is something like, there's just a fixed fee on prem, there's nothing more, I'm not going to charge you anything more. Or you can have the most common thing like, I will charge based on named user, which is similar to the OpenAI story I was showing you for the ChatGPT Pro subscription. On the other hand, if you're doing a token subscription with ChatGPT, that is completely variable. If you're doing an S3 bucket with Amazon, that is completely variable. So you have to decide what is the metric that aligns the buyer's value, the value gained by the buyer, to your success, right? And you have to align both their success and your success. Here are 7 factors we generally use and teach in our course, but the first 3 are about customers. Customers have a risk perception. They will go for a more variable thing if they think you are risky, so that may influence your decision. Customers may have mental anchors. In an established category, they're going to say, hey, I am used to paying per agent, why will I pay with some other metric? That may limit you. That often happens, but it may not happen for the case of AI products. Alignment value is the biggest thing. Do customers think that as this metric increases, it aligns with their success? It can't just be a metric. You are saying, hey, you are using so much of my product, but your business outcomes aren't changing, but I will still bill you. If that happens, the customers will leave. So first you need to figure out, does this increase in this metric help the customer in their ROI? And then you have to see, when that metric increases, can I charge and make money from it? So can I make money from it is dependent on a few things. The consumption pattern, how much are they using it? The cost patterns, what are the cogs for my product? And for AI products, cogs are very important. And then competitive action, I may think that X metric is good for me, but if all of my competitors are choosing Y metric, then my hand may be forced to choose Y metric as well. So I recommend making a list of the metrics that could work and just doing an assessment across these factors, and then making a selection. And this is more art than that it is science. You'll have to do some customer interviews. You'll have to see what works for customers, what works for you, and then finally you'll have to see whether you can even implement it. Many times companies will come up with a complicated set of 2 or 3 metrics, but then in a small startup, implementing that involves metering, it involves that being part of your CPQ system, it involves that being part of your billing system, joining in, linking everything, making sure your invoices are correct, and many companies falter. the bigger companies falter even more if you are moving to this. It is not necessarily that the most accurate, best in principle strategy is the winning strategy. A rough strategy may be a more winning strategy for you. So some examples. So when it comes to generative content, the par for the course, because the cogs are so high, companies are taking the route of dollar per amount of credit or token bundle. So this is a product called Botica. You can create fashion product photos, and they're selling you Lite, Pro, and Advanced, but it's not per user. It's per month, and you get a certain amount of photo credits. This is a company called Art Reader, similar type of generative product. They are also selling you certain amount of credits in a certain time period. And text prompts, this is, I believe it is in video.ai, and they are also selling in the same fashion. So this is now par for the course for generative AI products. It is not par for the course of how Sam Altman did it. People are charging based on buckets of credits because this is how they are going to protect their margin. Now, in the Zendesk example, I'm coming back to that. This is an enterprise company that included AI powered bots as part of all of its tiers. It included some amount of automated resolutions per agent per month. So, this is the metric they chose for those bots. It's dollar per automated resolution per agent per month. That is a very interesting metric. Why is it an interesting metric? Because if you're coming up with new chatbots, you have multiple options. You can choose per resolution is something that they said, but you could have something like a bot response, how many times the bot says anything at all. Or you could even have something like a monthly active users who are using the bot. Now, here I have listed a way that you can copy, and you can do this in your own case. But if I was the person doing the dollar per metric selection for Zendesk, I would say yes, dollar per resolution will be considered valuable by customers. That is clear. It is not fitting mental anchors, which may be okay because it's a new type of product anyway. It is definitely aligned to their success, because the more that cases are resolved, the more successful their customers are, and there is going to be usage. But is it proportionate to cost? I really don't know, because the definition of resolution is very fuzzy. As Zendesk, they may define some resolution definition, but it is not necessarily that across 10 customers, then you might not get like 5 different definitions for resolution. And then you are stuck fighting fires and overhead with customers. No competitors are charging like this. Is it implementable? I don't know, because if the definition keeps changing, how will you implement this resolution thing? So I would have been very skeptical about this, because it may align with customers, but it may open up another can of worms that I don't know how to deal with. And on that, I want to say this is a type of outcome based pricing, and it is not at all clear whether outcome based pricing works. It may be a giant failure, in which case you would be wrong to copy Zendesk. In general, you would be wrong to copy anything from anybody. That is not how you should run your business. But it is a trend in the valley, and I always talk against copying anything and making your own judgment for your own business. Now, if you look at dollar per MEU, for example, it can also be considered valuable because it's proportional to the amount of end consumers that are using the service. It is also aligned to usage. You will get enough usage there. Is it proportionate to cost? We don't know, but it is a better metric than per resolution. And it is more predictable. Once you have enough data generated, then you can model costs. And it's definitely much more implementable. It is much more clear and easy to define MAU. And there is not going to be any debate on what MAU is. So this is just one example of how you can make a list, make your judgment on the trade-offs, and have a discussion, and as an organization decide what is the right metric for you. All right, so we'll keep going. The last point is price, the setting of price points. So price point setting is also an art, but it uses some information. You want to see, are you competitive in the market? Now, it also depends on the nature of the market. Are you a blue ocean market, or are you a red ocean market? If you're a blue ocean market with low competition, there's not much competitive comparison you have to worry about. You will rather just focus on the ROI delivered and take a cut from it. But if it is a competitive market, then you have to see where are you versus competition. Look at your cogs. If you have a certain amount of cost to provide the product, then that puts a floor for your pricing. So you have to see what that is. You have to see how much the product is being used as well. And then you can do some testing, quantitative or qualitative testing, to find the right price point. But You have to triangulate the price point from a few different variables. So what is to be understood for AI products specifically is that the margins are lower, and this is a little bit of a math around the margins. R&D costs are going to be higher because you have to develop some models of your own. There's going to be fine tuning required. It's not as easy as just throwing up an application layer website. The cloud infrastructure costs are obviously going to be higher. Data costs are higher, and there is an AI tax on the compliance side because you can open yourself to so much legal threats, because a lot of these AI products could infringe on somebody's intellectual property, and then that could be a serious jeopardy to your business. So this is all contributing to a lower gross margin. Now, I at one point in a previous webinar had done this math, and I'm just summarizing a math for you to make you understand. For one, let's say you're Zendesk and you're creating this product for one customer of Zendesk that has 100 agents. If you used ChatGPT 4.0, it would cost, for a very basic use case of summarizing all customer calls across the year, it would cost this company, Zendesk, hypothetically, right? Not Zendesk, but a company like Zendesk, $55,000 for one client that has 100 agents, and that works out to $45 per agent per month, which is 40 to 50% of how much their per agent cost. But if you use DeepSeek, that comes down to $6 per agent per month. So there is, and DeepSeek is almost as good as 4.0 in terms of output. Product development, the engineering side also has to now account for the differing sort of models that are out there. You may try and experiment with something like 4.0, but as soon as you're successful, you need to switch over to some other model because you are bleeding money. And if you use ChatGPT 4.0, you are going to be bleeding money, and will need to move on to something else that is more scalable. That requires an understanding of economics and cost on the engineering side, where previous CTOs have had no need to understand this and no need to have made technology choices. Only once in 2 or 3 years would an engineer come and say we have to optimize cost and reduce cost, but only after the CFO was talking and barking at them. But in this case, if the time period is too long, your company is out of business. So the CTO needs to understand the economics of the product now. So COGS is something that is key for AI products, right? And that is different from regular SaaS products. One of the most common way to assess a range of acceptable pricing is to do a Van Westendorp survey. So it's a series of 4 questions. Basically, and you can easily Google and read more about this, but basically you are asking a price above which it would be too expensive for the customer to buy, and they would certainly not buy, and a point below which they would question the quality. And then there are 2 layers beneath that. So there's a set of 4 questions you ask, and it gives you a range of acceptable prices. So for a chosen product, for a selected tier, you can ask this question from survey format. The challenge that usually happens is that many enterprise products, you can't just send a survey, because if you have this crazy security product, people are not necessarily going to understand from a survey just through written text what you're trying to ask. You have to have the right people to ask, and in some cases you may have to do sort of an in-person research approach where you're asking these questions but in in-person method. And we have a methodology where we go through this approach for enterprise companies and more complex products. The inherent nature of the questions don't change, it is just the delivery. Sometimes you may need to do in-person calls if the survey method is not the best method. That being said, the Van Westendorp approach is still applicable. So when I share the slides, there is the in-person research approach that I had just mentioned that we do, which involves interviewing 15 to 20 clients and prospects, which will give you the similar analysis, but you can go much deeper. You can get understanding of how they value your packages. You can get an understanding of a lot of other things around your product, as well as the problem and pain point by this qualitative research approach. So these are the different tools you have access at your disposal to do a willingness to pay research. So in summary, what was the packaging based on? It was based on the nature of your market, always, right? Whether it's a new product or a new feature that you're launching, it's how many people are valuing you and what is the willingness to pay generally. So that is the summary on packaging. Packaging is always a function of your market, the nature of your market. Pricing metric is a balancing between what makes customers win and what makes you win. I advise you to lay out options on the table and pick one, but don't blindly copy someone else. And finally, price points. Understand, like a lot of other things don't change from traditional SaaS product price point setting, but what changes is COGS, and the COGS are very different. And because of COGS, a lot of companies are never going to use something like user-based pricing, because the Sam Altman example, maybe somebody's going to use your product a lot and you will start losing money. So you will be almost forced into using some sort of usage-based model. But even within a usage-based model, there are a lot of options. All right, so those were most of our points. We covered the blockbuster nature of AI products. We covered the regime change, that these pricing packaging decisions and the way these products are built have a huge implication of how the next crop of AI companies are going to operate. We do believe that they're going to operate differently, we value differently, the industry will work differently, and then specific points on pricing and packaging that you will need to at least start with for your AI products. So we are the SaaS industry's top pricing experts. We have a course called The Art of SaaS Pricing and Monetization. You can check it out on Maven. We have a book called Price to Scale. It's the second edition. It's on Amazon. You can scan this QR code to schedule a call with us. I'm happy to talk to you anytime. And these are the companies that we have together helped and led product marketing and pricing teams in. So I thank you so much for your time. And if you have questions, feel free to schedule a call with me or email me at ajit@getmonetizely.com.